All right, let's jump right in, shall we? Today, we're taking a deep dive into police accountability auditing. And for this one, we're headed across the pond to the UK. You sent over a couple of videos from a YouTube channel called Auditing Britain,
Right.
hosted by a guy who goes by AB. And basically, he goes to police stations and government buildings, films his interactions, and often challenges their actions, really pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing, this whole rise of citizen journalism, using social media to hold people accountable.
Yeah.
Auditing Britain is a really interesting example of that, especially in the UK's legal context. There are a lot of legal and ethical questions this brings up.
Yeah, for sure. And the two videos you gave me, Cowardly Investigator's Apartment and My Search Record, they definitely don't shy away from that tension. Just the opening of Cowardly Investigator's Department is intense, I mean. He's in a car park outside a police station and he's confronted right away by plainclothes officers. It escalates so quickly,
Yeah.
it turns into a heated argument and even gets physical over his camera.
It's a dramatic start, that's for sure.
Mm.
It really sets the stage for what these audits can be like. What's interesting is how he frames the narrative right from the beginning. Before the officers even come up to him, he's calling the situation suspicious. Almost like he's setting the expectation for his viewers that something is going on.
Oh, yeah. You can definitely tell he's trying to control the narrative right from the start. So these plainclothes officers approach him, and AB being AB, starts grilling them immediately.
Uh-huh.
He demands their names, their badge numbers, and accuses them of looking in cars in the car park.
Yeah, and their response is really important here. They don't give him the information he wants right away. They start questioning him. What's HE doing there?
Wow.
They tell him to take off his glasses, which we find out are actually a spy camera.
Wow.
So quickly becomes a back and forth about surveillance and who can observe who,
Yeah.
especially in a public space.
It's like a game of cat and mouse, but with a lot more on the line. And of course, things don't stay calm for very long. Officers try to grab him, pull his glasses off, and they even put him in handcuffs.
Right, so you have this escalation to physical confrontation.
Right.
It goes from just words to something more visceral.
Yeah.
Especially for AB's viewers, seeing him restrained probably reinforces that he's really challenging authority here
Yeah.
and that he's willing to put himself at risk
Oh, sure.
to expose what he thinks is wrong.
He even claims that they put the handcuffs on too tightly and squeezed his arm, adding to this whole sense of excessive force. But what I found really interesting is even while being handcuffed, he insists he doesn't have to answer their questions. He keeps saying, "I've got eyes, I can look," arguing that just watching what's happening in public isn't a crime.
Right, and that gets right to the heart of the legal gray areas surrounding this whole thing, this police accountability auditing. Especially in the UK, like, what are the limits of what people can do, both citizens and police, in these types of encounters? When does filming in public become harassment or obstruction? When is a police stop and search justified? These are all questions that courts have been dealing with for years.
It seems like AB is really pushing to see how far he can take things. So let's talk about this whole concept of police accountability auditing. For people who maybe aren't familiar with it, it's not just about filming the police, it's about using that footage to document their conduct,
Right.
to hold them accountable, to assert their rights.
And it goes back further than YouTube and social media. Citizen monitoring of law enforcement has been around for decades, especially by groups focused on things like police brutality and racial profiling. But platforms like YouTube have given it a much bigger reach and impact.
Right, now these encounters can be broadcast to the entire world.
Exactly. It creates public pressure and scrutiny that just wasn't possible before.
Yeah. And AB definitely seems to get that, how to use that platform. He's super confrontational, uses really strong language. He challenges authority directly and insists on filming everything. At one point, he even apologizes to his viewers for his language. He admits he lost the plot more than usual. It's almost like you get a glimpse behind the curtain of how intense these encounters can be.
It's fascinating that he apologizes.
Yeah.
It shows that he knows there's a performance to what he's doing. He knows that strong emotions get views on YouTube. So it makes you wonder, is he really looking for accountability or just trying to make viral content? Maybe it's both.
It's a good question. It makes you think about his motivation. So eventually things calm down. The police let AB go, but he demands a search record, which I didn't even know was a thing before watching these videos.
Yeah.
The officers refused to give it to him at first, which of course just makes him even more suspicious.
Okay, so what is a search record? It's a document that police in the UK have to give you after they do a stop and search. It's supposed to explain why they searched you, what they found, and the names of the officers involved. It's about transparency and accountability.
So AB being denied that record, obviously it makes him want it even more. So this leads him on this journey to several police stations, which is all in that second video, My Search Record.
Almost like a dark comedy in that second video. He finds a police station that's closed. He gets into this weird standoff with an officer guarding a private area, and he eventually ends up at Lloyd House Police Station. And this whole time, he's narrating everything, adding in his own thoughts, and it really builds on this narrative of the police being incompetent or even malicious.
It's definitely a journey. And even at Lloyd House, where he finally gets the record, he still finds things to complain about. He has this awkward interaction with a young officer who seems flustered. And then he runs into the same polite woman from his last visit who eventually gives him the record. But even then, he doesn't seem satisfied.
That's just how he is. He's always looking for inconsistencies. Anything he can use as evidence of police wrongdoing. It's like he expects the police to mess up.
Yeah.
And he's trying to prove it.
And the record itself ends up adding fuel to that fire. So let's get into what the record says. But first, so this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
The search record itself becomes this point of contention. AB's account versus the official police account.
Right. It reminds you that even a document that seems objective, it can still be interpreted in different ways.
So what does it actually say?
Well, it says the search was done because AB was seen walking to a police station, secure car park, and looking into the cars.
Oh, okay.
But AB says he was just walking by, not looking into them.
So it's his word against theirs. And the record doesn't really help.
Exactly. It makes you wonder,
Yeah.
how much can you trust these police records? You know, how much is subjective interpretation?
And it's not just about why they searched him. The record also claims AB was non-compliant, which could mean anything. Even AB questions what they mean by that in the video.
That's a good point. Non-compliant can be a really broad term. Did he refuse to answer questions? Did he resist physically? Was he just not following their instructions fast enough? We don't know.
It seems like it gives officers a lot of leeway
It does.
in how they interpret behavior.
Absolutely.
The record also names the officer who did the search, Officer McDonald.
Right.
AB seems to focus on that, but it's not really clear why.
It's like he's trying to build a case against this officer specifically. But without knowing more, it's hard to say if that's fair.
And this is where social media becomes so powerful.
Boy,
AB has this platform to share his story and potentially influence people.
it can be a good thing, holding people accountable.
Mm-hmm.
But it also has risks. There can be bias, selective editing. It can make people outraged, even if they don't have all the information.
And it works both ways, right?
Yeah.
We've seen police departments using social media to control the narrative.
All the time.
They release body cam footage to support their side.
It's become a battleground for public opinion. And public opinion can be a powerful force.
This whole thing really highlights the issues surrounding police accountability, especially now with social media. Where do we draw the line between citizen journalism and harassment? How do we make sure police are held accountable while letting them do their jobs?
These are the big questions. And there aren't any easy answers. The laws are changing all the time. And technology is changing even faster. This debate is far from over.
This case really makes you think about the power dynamics between people and law enforcement.
It does?
But going back to the videos, it's not all about legal arguments. It's also about the human element. AB's journey to get that record is full of these bizarre encounters. It shows the frustration of dealing with bureaucracy.
That's a really important point. It's easy to get lost in the legal and ethical stuff. But these are real people, interacting in often stressful situations. His encounters with the officer guarding the area, with the young officer at Lloyd House, even with the woman who gives him the record, they all add to this sense of absurdity and frustration.
It seems like he almost enjoys those moments.
Yeah.
Like he's looking for proof that the police are incompetent or don't care. But do you think that approach is actually effective? Can he really achieve change that way?
It's a question everyone needs to ask when they watch these videos. Is his confrontational style going to help? Or is it just going to create more division?
He definitely plays to his audience a bit.
Oh, yeah.
He knows that conflict and outrage get more views online, but that doesn't mean his concerns are invalid.
Of course not. The things he's talking about, police accountability, transparency, the right to film in public, those are all important issues. It's just that the way he goes about it is going to divide people.
Some people will see him as a hero.
Right.
Others will see him as a troublemaker.
Exactly.
It's interesting to see how people interpret these videos
It is.
based on their own experiences.
If you've had bad experiences with law enforcement, you might agree with AB. But if you respect the police, you might see him as the problem.
That's why it's so important to think critically about this stuff. to consider different perspectives and not just believe what one person says.
These videos show us a small part of a very complex world. They don't tell the whole story.
So we've talked about the search record, how he got it, and what it means for police accountability. But there's another layer here, AB's reactions and how he tells the story.
That's important.
It helps you understand how these videos affect people.
For sure.
He's not afraid to show his anger and frustration.
Like in Cowardly Investigator's Department, when he calls the officers cowards
Yeah.
when they leave without giving him the record. It's like he's trying to get a reaction out of them.
It feels like he's putting on a show sometimes.
He knows the camera's there.
Yeah.
He's playing to the audience, the way he frames everything, his language, how he edits it. It's all meant to make him look like he's the good guy fighting a corrupt system.
Again, it makes you question his motives. Is he really trying to get justice, or does he just want views and subscribers?
It's hard to say for sure. Maybe it's a little both.
It's a tough line to walk. And it makes it so hard to have a real conversation about this stuff when it's presented in such extreme ways.
Right. It's not black and white. There are legal gray areas, ethical complexities, people's emotions on all sides. Oversimplifying these issues doesn't help anyone.
So where do we go from here? How do we move past this and actually have productive conversations about police accountability?
That's the challenge. I think it starts with acknowledging that everyone has valid concerns. People have a right to feel safe and hold those in power accountable. But police officers have a tough job.
It seems like finding a middle ground is so hard these days.
It is, but it's not impossible. We have to listen to each other. Consider different points of view. Resist the temptation to reduce everything to sound bites and hashtags.
It's about finding a balance, individual rights and public safety. Promote accountability without demonizing people.
That's it. And it requires open-mindedness, critical thinking, being willing to have difficult conversations.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into auditing Britain, I think the most important takeaway is not just the specific events, it's the bigger questions these videos raise. Questions about power, accountability, and how technology shapes our understanding of this.
I agree.
These videos are a window into a world that's both fascinating and concerning. A world where right and wrong are not always clear. And finding solutions is more than just blaming people.
It's about recognizing that everyone is human. Engaging with these issues thoughtfully, working towards a future where we can achieve accountability and justice through dialogue and understanding.
It feels like everything is being recorded these days. Every interaction, especially with the police, it could end up online. I wonder how that's changing how people act, both regular people and those in positions of power.
It's definitely changed things. It can be good for transparency and accountability. If people know they might be filmed, they might be less likely to do something wrong. But it also creates this atmosphere of suspicion, Like everyone is watching you. People might not be as open if they feel like they're constantly being judged.
And for police officers, it must add a whole new level of stress, knowing that anything they do could be on YouTube.
Especially after all those videos of police brutality that went viral, it's hard to find a balance. Respecting people's right to film, but also letting officers do their job safely.
It seems like there's just a lot of distrust on both sides.
Yeah.
Citizens are wary of the police, worried about abuse of power, and police are wary of citizens, worried about being filmed and misrepresented.
Yeah, that lack of trust makes it really hard to find common ground. And social media often makes it worse. It amplifies the most extreme and sensational stories.
It's like we're all stuck in echo chambers, only seeing things that confirm what we already believe.
Right. Those algorithms are designed to show us what we like, which usually means stuff that fits our biases.
So do you think these Auditing Britain videos help people understand these issues better, or do they just add to the problem?
It really depends on how people watch them. If someone watches with an open mind, trying to see all sides, they can definitely learn something.
But if they just take AB at his word, they might not get the whole picture.
That's why it's so important to be media literate. We have to be critical of the information we see, especially about sensitive topics like policing.
We need to be aware of our own biases, recognize the limitations of one person's story, and look for information from different sources.
These issues are complicated. There are rarely easy answers.
And even though videos like these can be interesting and raise awareness, there's not a substitute for real action. If you really care about police accountability and want to make a difference, there are so many ways to get involved. Volunteer, go to community meetings, contact your representatives, learn about the laws.
Sometimes the best thing you can do is talk to people who have different opinions than you. Try to understand where they're coming from. Find some common ground.
That's a great point. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to thank you for bringing these videos to my attention. They've given us a lot to think about.
It's been my pleasure. Remember, knowledge is power. The more we know, the better we can be part of the solution.
That's a perfect way to end this. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.